Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening, and we've got a fair amount of news. We're going to just do kind of a short one, but I wanted to start with, we got Larry. Hi, Larry. How are you doing?
Hey, Stewart. Just sitting on my mountain.
Shoveling out the snow probably in the next few days. France chaos worsens. Army seen deploying towards Paris. Protests and riots in France are worsening, and today elements of the French army are being deploying towards Paris. Earlier this week, police in France's capital city called for the army, saying the protests and riots have become actually a revolution. Now, you have a Bible code that's kind of interesting. Tell us what you can on it.
Well, it's a very intriguing Bible code, and what's so interesting, it dates back a short time and really links in, and I do want to make this very clear at first, so everybody will know this is not, I repeat, this is not an initiated Torah code of Barry Rothman. Now, even though I'll mention him in this, short report, I just want people to know Barry Rothman did not initiate this Bible code. This came from Fabrice Beck in France. It actually came out of France on his Exodus 2006 Bible code group. And he's been doing them for a few years. And anyway, he had this one, and I erroneously the other day mentioned that I thought he had passed away, but I stand corrected. Fabrice Beck, Tom Mack, says is still alive and still doing codes, so I was wrong there. But what's interesting is Tom Mack kind of posted this code, sent me a copy of it, and I actually sent a copy to Barry Rothman, and he was very intrigued by it. And one of the, the reason I'm kind of careful in what I'm saying about it is that it involves Macron, and of course, during the most recent G20 summit, Macron was there, and Macron's not at the time a real fan of Trump's, but at the same time, he was also kind of trying to rebuke Mohammed bin Salman, which was actually seen on video imagery. And,
yes.
And of course, when Barry Rothman got this code that Fabrice Beck had actually initiated and ran, and it involved a very stern warning from the code from the Torah, indicating a possibility of something not real good happening to Macron. In other words, a violent end. And so anyway, Barry Rothman did, checked it, and he said it appears to be valid from his point of view. And there was some other stuff, and just let me read these off. This is in one that I saw recently. Let me give you the wording. Very interesting. Number 1, E. Macron to die, president. Number 2, executioner. Number 3, Merkel. 4 is a strange phrase. I will put an enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. Number 5, economy. Number 6, shooter. Number 7, Arab. Number 8, Ishmael. Number 9, Marie. Number 10, Euro. And number 11, Sarah. And it seems to indicate a little bit, if you just look carefully, and you also remember, and I'll use that other in just a minute, but there was a recent Torah code that Barry Rothman did, Angela Merkel, Germany chooses Islam, that we read on a recent show, I believe.
Yes.
And keep that in mind. And then suddenly this comes up out of France. Barry checks it out and put an addendum to it, and he's still looking at it, but he said that we could mention that wording and everything. But here again, we've got Emmanuel Macron, as Frederick Beck's Torah Code says, to die as president, and it involves Merkel, and I want to say this right. I don't want to put something in there that's not in there, but it does appear that there's a possibility, the way these coding words are, that possible that, at the moment, Merkel and Macron are not getting along. Matter of fact, they're having a lot of problems. And we know that Macron is in real political trouble in France and about to have a revolution. And it seems some of this wording, it might indicate, and I'm just saying might indicate, that possibly someone takes him out and they try to actually blame it on an Arab or foreigner as the assassin, which may and possibly not be true. What do you think?
Yeah, and this is kind of interesting. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, is direct reference to, of course, the Lord Jesus Christ and his work on the cross. So it almost indicates that, again, that it's being inserted where it is, might be an indication that we are rapidly approaching the time of Jacob's trouble, and which is just around the corner, I think, with all the talk about the third temple, et cetera, which is exactly what the New Testament had to say about it, that there would be a new temple. Then we've got economy, and we've got the euro. I wonder if that's I know that some of the problems they're having over there are taxes and a new carbon tax that they want, that the New World Order wants to impose upon the whole world. Eventually, the people are going to rise up, and eventually the Illuminati, the great ones, whatever you want to call them, are going to wish they had never been born. They have rejected Jesus Christ. They hate Jesus Christ. They don't want to hear the word, and their fight is against him. And as the Psalms say, Psalm 23, or Psalm 2 rather, talks about how the Lord just laughs at them. With all their weapons that they're trying to develop to bring Christ down at his return, it just says the Lord laughs at all of them. I mean, it's the most insane, stupid thing you could do is to think you're going to outfox your Creator. I mean, I just don't understand the insane rationale of anyone who would think they could outsmart their Creator. Of course, maybe they don't think there is a Creator. Who knows? They're going to find out the hard way there is. But you can't tell people that. Like it says in the book of Daniel, the wicked will never understand. You could present 2,000 verses of Scripture of everything they're doing. They can't see it. So they have no excuse when this thing goes down. But that would be my take on it, and they are going to blame it, probably. This might be another way to try and get Prince Salman. Blame it on him. He's the one who did it. Remember, he got chewed out, got mad. So he had Macron executed. What do you think? That's a possibility.
Well, that's a really interesting thought, and the whole world at the moment seems to be after Salman, who is still missing, as far as I can tell. He's not actually come out from wherever he went. He's not out right now. And one thing I thought of too, as you were sharing there, what was interesting recently. Macron tried to chide Trump about the deal with NATO and them, Trump asking that they do carry their own load. And the very interesting remark that Trump gave Macron was, if I remember right, before the Americans arrived, you people spoke German, which is historically extremely accurate. And had a cause to be troubled with Germany, France's history of being conquered by the Germans and ruled over by the Germans, and you know their brutality, they should completely resist bowing to Germany, who right now seems to be pushing the power in the EU.
Yeah, and of course Merkel's got problems of her own, and this is all. I just think we're going to see uprisings and overturnings. When the Illuminati or whoever you want to call them say they're going to bring world chaos, I don't think they're fooling. And this is all part of their overall plan, of course. The Iran needs their, what do you call them? Can't think of the name right now. They're Mahdi, yeah. And they need their war. The Illuminati need their war. They got to have their war. They can't bring in the New World Order unless they have some pretty good excuses as to why they have suspended everybody's rights around the world and bring in their New World Order. It's kind of interesting to me how all that works. It's amazing to me that the rich men, who are very, very intelligent people, evidently do not believe in the God factor, but they're going to find out the hard way there really was a God factor, as I personally had to find out there is a God factor. So, it's the way it is. The latest here, I got a headline here, so this is the latest, Ukraine. Huge Russian military buildup on the border. And then it goes on to say President Petro Poroshenko, I guess, says Russia has deployed more than 80,000 troops, 1,400 artillery and multiple rocket launch systems, 900 tanks, 23 armored combat vehicles, 500 aircraft, and 300 helicopters along their border. And the article does say, well, we haven't really verified that, because how are you going to? I'm sure our military knows what that count is. And it seems to me they're pushing for this war. Then here's another headline. Russia publicly warns it will launch against any nation housing U.S. nuclear weapons. What's all that about? What's going on over there?
Well, what that seems to be about is this recent move by NATO. And, of course, the incident at the Kerch bridge there, at Crimea. We're all aware of that. We've been kind of wondering about that. And isn't it interesting, Stewart, that if you're watching mainstream news, you hadn't seen nothing. You haven't seen anything, all particularly. But what the recent reports are coming out, if true, there was one Hal Turner posted that also, I believe Israeli News Live spoke of. It says Ukraine and Georgia to join NATO, as NATO is sending naval forces to the Azov Sea. And, and that's the sea that Russia blocked at that Kerch Strait Bridge, by the way. And it says NATO vessels will have to navigate beneath the Kerch Strait Bridge entrance to the Sea of Azov to reach Mariupol, I believe it is, there in Ukraine. And Russia is saying this is war and preps Russian citizens publicly for the war that's coming. And they're certainly warning that. And by the way, there's a new post this morning indicating that NATO apparently is sending, warships to that location off Crimea. So you've got Russia saying you're not going to pass through, and NATO saying, well, yes, we are. You could start World War III without even a lot of trouble right there, Stewart.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder if that's not what the overall plan is. We know that the rich men of the earth, Psalm 2, plot and plan and all that stuff for their little wars that are going to basically pulverize planet Earth and kill millions. So that's what they want. They want a population reduction. Deagle.com says it pretty well. And then we've got that North Korean situation where they're not disarming, whatever. I've got the headline here. I think it's the one you're referring to. Ukraine and former Soviet Georgia to join NATO, sending NATO naval forces to the Azov Sea. Russia says no entry. So you're right. This will be an act of war. So is that why the headline that I quoted from is where they said, go ahead, and we're going to take out anything that gets in our way? Russia publicly warns it will launch against any nation housing U.S. nuclear weapons. Well, we've got a lot of people along the border. Putin is being way underestimated. And I think he publicly has said, look, World War III is coming. It's inevitable. And then you got guys like Obama said, World War III is coming and I can't stop it. So what are these guys really saying? They're saying that there's a power above them that is orchestrating all of this. And, of course, we know who that is, Satan himself, who hates the human race, but has told the human race that he really loves them and he wants to free them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we got basically behind it all is a war between Jesus Christ and Satan himself. And unfortunately, humanity has chosen Satan over Jesus Christ. And humanity, because they're a fallen race, has an innate, unconscious hatred for the true God. I believe that's why we have all these religions. It's to circumvent what the true God, Jesus Christ, who came down here and said, okay, I'll free you. You're all in prison, and I will free you, but this is what you got to do, and nobody wants to do it. So here we are, and they got to have their war. Getting back to the war, it says the Russian military has announced that any nation housing U.S. medium and short-range nuclear missiles will be targeted by Russia and fired upon in the event of a major war. So this is coming right out of the Chief of General Staff of the Armed Forces. So what do you think? I think this is more serious than people realize, and this thing could go anytime. Does anybody know when the ships will arrive to go into the Sea of Azov?
No, the latest I've heard is that the U.S. sent a missile ship by that region, and they say Russia just laughed at it, Russia has the S-400s in Crimea now. Those can take out planes, missiles, ships. They've got a range to cover that whole Black Sea, actually. And this is what's interesting to me, Stewart. You was talking about they rejected Jesus Christ. Well, remember this is what the population chose when it was Jesus or Barabbas. They wanted Barabbas. And there's on Fox News, Lou Dobbs the other day, Cohen was on it. He's a very intelligent guy.
Yes,
he said they won't. He said they won't let Trump avoid this coming war with Russia. He said JFK was able to avert a Russian missile crisis before, but he said they're not going to let Trump do the same thing. They want their war. That's what he said.
Well, I believe he's right. These deep state operatives, and it doesn't matter whether Trump part of it, not part of it, or anything, they are going to have their world war. And they have invested trillions of dollars over the years to bring about this new world order. And when you start looking at all the surveillance stuff that's going on now, and financial controls and all that, obviously leading to what the Bible calls the mark of the beast. Computer savvy people already are waving their hands before, registers. The chips are being implanted in people, and it's acclimating them. to all of this. Here's another headline I want to get to. Order to Ukraine Navy to provoke Russia in Kerch Strait came right from the U.S. Embassy in the Ukraine. So that would appear to me that the United States, as usual, Babylon the Great, is in every nation stirring up all kinds of trouble, just like the Bible says they do. And, of course, it leads to the ultimate demise of America. And it's too bad that otherwise very intelligent people can't see what's coming. But I guess Bible prophecy has to be fulfilled, whether we like it or don't like it. I mean, we all got families. Most of them are in total Christ rejection mode and don't want anything to do with it, and they're gonna come under, I don't know what to call it, horrific judgment. It's sad to me. I was watching the part of the Bush thing, and the pomp and the circumstance, and I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Christians, they don't believe any of that, but it doesn't make any difference. They believe it or not, they're going to find out it's true. The Bible is absolutely true when it says every knee shall bow and acknowledge that Jesus Christ is the King of Kings. So it doesn't matter whether they're Christian or not. They're going to be sort of Christians at the end of it all, because they're going to bow their knee to this man, God, who they absolutely hate with an absolute hatred. And they don't even realize it. But, you know, all you got to do is walk downtown and mention the word Jesus Christ, and you get stoned practically. So here we have the U.S., Babylon the Great, over there stirring up all trouble, trying to get this war going. And I think you're right. They are not going to stop, even if they have to assassinate Donald Trump. They'll do it. They could care less who they have to kill to get what they want. Only when they get it, they're going to wish they had never been born. But you can warn them, but they're not going to listen, because they think this time everything's different. And when we get rid of all these evil people that believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, motherhood, apple pie, and the Lord, and Bible prophecy, when we get rid of all these Christians, when we're done dancing in their blood and guts, we're going to have it made on this planet, only to find out they just hung themselves. Well, they're in the process of hanging themselves right now. So, and this is just one more thing, too, I think. When you read stuff like this of Babylon going in and stirring up this kind of trouble and provoking Russia, obviously they want their world war. And I think Putin will oblige. I think he'll give it to them. What do you think?
Well, certainly could possibly be right on the horizon. An interesting post came out. You mentioned the funeral. Yahoo News posted after the funeral, question: how will Trump's farewell someday compare to George H.W. Bush Washington's goodbye? That sounds like to me that's a hint that maybe they're planning on Trump's farewell coming soon. And what's so interesting at this point, Stewart, is the fact that we haven't even talked about North Korea and their missiles they're setting up. We haven't talked about Iran and the activities they're doing all around the world and arming Beirut, Lebanon with multitudes of missiles to fire on Israel. And we haven't talked about, actually so many of the enemies, China especially, just waiting to pounce. And that's so sad, Stewart, because, Trump has done everything for the last 2 years to try to meet with Putin and talk with Putin. And do you know that the deep state is in a total rage, including their arm called the leftist mainstream media of America? They demand that he not meet with Putin, that he not meet with Netanyahu, that he not meet with Salman. who called them God and gave them the keys?
Satan, the king and prince of this air, of the air. They're run by Satan. They just don't believe it. They don't know it. I guess some of them obviously know it. When you die, they figure it out, but it's a little too late. Excuse me, at that point to figure it out. But unfortunately, humanity is the enemy of Jesus Christ. It's the enemy of God the Father, and they just don't realize that. They don't understand that they're fallen, and because they are fallen, they are in league with Satan, and God treats them as he would treat Satan. And that's why Jesus said, we are in a prison. I came to set the prisoners free. Do what I tell you, and I'll set you free. And if you won't, well, I guess you want to remain a prisoner. And when you find out, when you die, that you really are a prisoner. Anyway, this is part of this Ukrainian thing, and the Ukrainian Army senior official confirms NATO members have internally agreed naval forces will be sent to the Azov Sea. Currently, the necessary paperwork is in preparation. This means that NATO naval vessels will now stand in for Ukrainian naval vessels in the contested sea area. That is trouble. And he says here that the trouble is that in order for NATO ships to get into the Sea of Azov, they have to navigate beneath Kerch Strait Bridge, which is solely and exclusively Russian territory. Russia is already saying they will not be allowed. So here we are. This is war. It's just a question of when they challenge it. If NATO's that stupid, which I believe probably they are, because they're way underestimating Putin. And we know that because the Bible tells us that. It's Putin and his allies that take out the United States of America from coast to coast. And it doesn't matter whether an order is given to Kimmy the whiz kid over there in North Korea. You go launch first, and we'll take it out second. They've infiltrated the United States. They want to bring it down. Homeland Security is complicit. They're all complicit in it, and they're going to wish they'd never been born. I don't know what else to say to them. They have no idea what judgment is before the Lord. And I'm not even a religious person, and I came under judgment of the Lord. And I'm telling you right now, nobody wants to go through it. And they're going to. Every human being is going to go through this judgment. Anyway, final last word, Larry. And Friday night we will do tomorrow night we'll do a much longer, if we can.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I was just going to say that France is close to revolution, and people need to keep a heads up about December the 10th because the protesters are talking of shutting that entire country down, and something happening on December the 10th. So we'll just have to watch it.
Yeah, and it's interesting also that December 10th is the 8th day of Hanukkah. And the Feast of Dedication. So it's kind of interesting. In Hanukkah, the 10th day of Hanukkah is 444 days from the sign, Revelation 12 sign, from 923 of 2017, I guess it was. Yeah. Yep. Numbers are there. Trouble's coming, folks. Hope you've prepared at least a little. Anyway, take care, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow night with a much longer update of what we can do, and because there's a lot of news out there, it just needs more explaining, I guess. Anyway, take care, and if you haven't prepared, do so. And thank you, Larry, for coming on and sharing with us, and we'll hope to have Larry back on Friday night. Anyway, take care.